Hello, good morning. Today is a little bit of a different day because I am on the road. So I am just going to jump straight into the screen share. But hello, thank you for coming. Today we are going to sip some coffee and chat about goal setting and motivation. So if you are part of the replay crew, welcome. There will be timestamps below just for you. But in the meantime, I'm Terrell, and this is Absolutely Studying. I chat about study tips and organization hacks and goal setting to keep you on track with your study struggle. And today we are going to really get into and talk about, oh, wait, no, I got the wrong article up. Here we go. We are going to talk about negative self talk and how it can impact and affect your grades. So if you are interested, then hang out, sit down, take a seat, put your feet up, and let's get talking. Afterwards, we will do a little bit of goal setting. So stick around for that as well. So, negative self talk and how it affects your grades. Right now, we're going to talk about all of the things that you need to not say to yourself. So, navigating the stresses and demands of achieving your dreams in a post secondary setting can cause immense physical, mental, and emotional strain on you. It's no wonder that there are so many people who underachieve or just give up. You are not going to be that person. You are going to shine bright and make it through. I've got your back and I'm going to make sure of it. But what about when all of that pressure does get to you? Everybody has those moments, off days when you just cannot get out of that funk. Often we discuss the study and organizational tips to save your time or for your time or for physical items. Today, we are going to go off road just a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about organizing your thoughts. How can we do this? Or is the way you think set in stone? There is an increasing openness around the discussion of mental health. This new honesty shines a light on how many I cannot read this morning. I do not know why, but reading not my forte. Let's try that again. There is an increasing openness about the discussion of mental health. This new honesty shines a light on how many of the problems associated with it. This new honesty shines a light on many of the problems associated with the dark place students often seem to be falling into. This helps to face these problems head on and even possibly prevent some of them. There appears to be a direct correlation between the moods that students experience and the types of self-talk they engage in. When you are down, it can spread to all areas of your day. It could seem that nothing is going right. This pessimism spreads as it grows, invading everything you touch. These dark funks and depressions are not the only culprit contributing to negative thought patterns. Exam and test anxiety are also substantial contributing factors to the hopelessness and pressure felt by students, both young and old. The definition of test anxiety is a distressed state experienced when a person perceives an evaluative situation as threatening. They might anticipate failure or feel threatened by the situation when their behavior or performance could be perceived as poor. So, what that just means is that when you know that you're being evaluated, when you know that somebody's watching you and judging you or evaluating or grading and marking you on your actions, regardless of if it's a physical action or an exam or an assignment, that can just inherently cause anxiety in many people. So students who experience test anxiety have a lasting and consistent tendency to experience functional reactions, both physically and behaviorally, during assessments and exams. So test anxiety, that's when you really have a lot of anxiety. So you might have some physical reactions. So your palms might start sweating, or your hands might start trembling, or even your heart rate will increase. Those are all physical. Behavioral means that you could get a little bit scattered. Maybe you have a really hard time with staying focused. Your behaviors are affected. And so when you have those kind of reactions, both physical and emotional and so on, during tests, in reaction to tests, then that is test anxiety. Oh, so this just means, Terrell, keep reading. You've already explained it. This just means that stress manifests in a way that expresses itself through bodily movements or actions that may not otherwise be characteristic of the person exhibiting them. This could be as minor as sweating or biting their nails, or something significant like a full-on panic attack. So if you're not generally somebody who bites their nails just out of boredom, then, and all of a sudden when anxiety hits, you start biting your nails, that is something that is not typical, not a typical expressed behavior. So that is something that you don't normally do under other circumstances. So these fears arise surrounding the possibility of poor outcome or failure. This nervousness is a direct result of the specific way that students react to the evaluation. The response often results in the emergence of test anxiety. Exams are not the only culprit that can summon test anxiety. Setting unrealistic goals and perfectionism can also contribute to this. So if you are a perfectionist, if you tend to be a perfectionist, then this is, did I forget? Here, let me switch the share. I'm going off and you can't even see what I'm doing. You can't even see it. Like, why did I think you could see it? It's if you were not able to see the proper screens beforehand, the proper slides or the proper part, I'm so sorry that it took me this long. It's showing me that I was sharing my screen, but when I look at the YouTubes, it says that I am not. So here, let's try this because this is getting out of hand. I'm like, okay, here we go. Hopefully, if it was not sharing properly up until now, I do apologize. But it showed me on the back end that it was sharing. When I took a peek to see if there were any comments, it looks like it is not in fact sharing. So who knows? Who knows? We roll with the punches here. That's what we do. Okay, let's go and see and make sure that I have a bird's eye view that we are still doing all of the things. Okay, we're gonna have this, we're gonna set the monitor up. The monitor is going to help us. We are not going to take any more shortcuts. It's up, it's going. We have a bird's eye view. My apologies. Okay, so exams are not the only culprit that can summon test anxiety. Setting unrealistic goals and perfectionism can also contribute to this. So, what is negative self-talk? Sometimes that little voice in the back of your head can make all the difference in picking you up or driving you down deeper. We often hear reports of athletes talking to themselves. They might give themselves little pep talks in the moments before a race or during a big game. These words will clear their thoughts and help them to focus. Maybe it could even give a boost of positive energy. We also hear how it gives them a little bit of extra motivation to really help break away from the competition. This practice is actually supported by scientific research. The studies show that uplifting self talk can improve the success and presentation of abilities while boosting concentration and elevating self confidence. These benefits translate to a measurable increase in performance. When the self talk is negative or degrading, performance is adversely affected. Anxious self talk falls into this damaging category. These talks will fill your action with unease, caution, and self-doubt. If these ideas creep in when you're required to work at your best, your results will suffer. The performance will reflect this apprehension when compared to how you would do when you were more confident. So what that means is when you have this negative self-talk, when you do have these fears that flood into your mind, when you do have this negative self-talk that floods into your mind, then it is going to cause you to second guess yourself. So there will be that apprehension in your performance. You won't be able to just have confidence in it and like flaunt it. It's going to kind of hold you back a little bit in reserve. So even for anxious, with just general negative or degrading self-talk, that is going to over time bring you down as well. And that will bring you down overall, but that anxiety will actually have that apprehension. And so what that means is over time, when you continue this negative self-talk habit, if you continuously tell yourself, I can't do it, I'm not going to be able to do it, eventually you're not going to be able to do it because those words will actually creep into your thoughts. It will creep into your brain and to the deepest parts of your brain, and it will lower your ability to do things. So your brain's not going to believe you're able to do it. So it will actually hinder your performance. And the more committed you are to this negative self-talk, the more you do it, the more it affects that performance. So here we go. Some examples of negative self-talk. The differences between positive and negative self-talk are pretty distinct. Statements that fall under the positive self-talk umbrella are generally constructive or motivational. These are statements that you say to yourself to sharpen your focus or boost your confidence. Distracting thoughts or language used to console yourself during moments of doubt and despair are also considered positive self-talk. These are all effective coping strategies that will boost, not hinder your performance at the time of evaluation. So if you feel like you have those moments of anxiety or test anxiety or doubt in your ability, if you calm yourself, even if you just say, it's going to be okay, we're going to get through this, even simple things like that are considered positive self-talk. So that's really important to keep in mind. Examples of negative self-talk. Is that little voice in the back of your head ever not so kind? Has there been a time when you say or think things about yourself that are malicious, that are more malicious than constructive? Well, when those thoughts become a regular occurrence, creeping into your daily events, then you have adopted the habit of negative self-talk. You cannot let this fester. You have to intervene in this thought process, to not be inhibited and continue on. Oh, I am missing a piece of this article. That is why I like reading these articles with you guys, because I read through them and sometimes you just miss them. So we need to come back and we need to fix this article for sure. How negative self-talk affects us. Let's focus on how this cycle started and why it persists today so that we can shatter this tendency to get you the marks you deserve. Negative self-talk is a learned behavior. Infants are not born with the inherent ability to doubt themselves. You were born fearless, and even into childhood, you believed that you could pretty much do anything. Unfortunately, life, circumstance, and the people around you have taught you that this is not so. Before long, children learn to doubt themselves and their abilities. You see others excel and think that you could never reach that level. You hear others saying that they cannot do something, and then you start repeating this to yourself. The internalization of doubt, the internalization of self-doubt and apprehension is the beginning of negative self-talk. Repeating these thoughts and phrases throughout the years breeds the anxiety that many of us experience in our studies. Learning to identify the patterns of negative internal dialogue is a fantastic first step in controlling and modifying your emotions. This can be helpful whether you suffer from depression and anxiety, or if you just fall into the occasional slump. Noticing these triggers and how they make you feel can help to combat them and change the outcome. If you feel like this is hopeless, it's not just you. This feeling of despair can be a symptom of your negative self-talk or anxiety. Students with higher levels of test anxiety are much harder on themselves than those who do not have this problem. They often assume that the goals they wish to reach are too high and just accept to fall short. When asked, these students will often predict to obtain much lower grades than those who do not suffer from the same conditions. This view of their abilities persists regardless of actual preparation time, current class standing, or knowledge of the subject. So you can be at the very top of your class, but you will not believe it, regardless of how much studying you put in, because of this negative internal dialogue. These same undergrads will even evaluate themselves more severely, giving them less credit for the work they put into preparing for the exam. They also mark their efforts more critically, believing their work is of lower quality than it actually is. There is an interesting phenomenon with the practice of allowing this negative self-talk to embezzle your consciousness. Even if you don't believe the things that you're saying in this self-speak, these words and phrases can still significantly impact your performance. Luckily, people are not required to actually believe their positive self-talk to show superior performance. So we went over a lot there, and I would just like to unpack it for a second. So all in all, when you are engaging in negative self-talk, or for students who have made it a habit of engaging in negative self-talk, they believe themselves to be inferior in knowledge and in skill than students who do not engage in negative self-talk. So people who are much more engaged in positive self-talk, or just don't have those same critical voices rattling around in their head. So when students who are engaged in negative self-talk go back and they try to mark themselves on a practice test, they will actually give themselves less credit than they deserve. They will mark themselves more critically, giving themselves lower marks and thinking that their work is has a lower quality than it actually does, compared to students who don't engage in negative self-talk. And so it's really stealing away, because they are spending, even when they spend all of these hours preparing, they still feel like it's not enough. They honestly believe like they're not doing enough and they're failing, when it's just simply not necessarily true. So, but they will never be able to critically, and by critically, I mean accurately, they will never be able to accurately gauge where they are in class standing, or where they are in their confidence level, or where they are in their actual study process, just by perspective alone, because their perspective is marred by this negative self-talk, telling them that they're not good enough, that what they're doing is not good enough, when often it's not true. So what does this mean? This means that negative self-talk will diminish performance, whether you believe you're saying it or not. So you can tell yourself that this is not true. You can say, oh my God, I suck so bad. And then immediately say, no, 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 that's not true. But if you keep doing it, over and over and over again, your brain, the primal part of your brain, is going to believe it, whether your upper functions do or not. To put this simply, self-talk has consequences. Telling yourself that you can excel at something will increase your performance, even if you don't actually believe it at first. Constantly criticizing and second-guessing yourself will eventually wear away at even the most highly confident people, allowing self-doubt to creep in and ultimately dwindling the outcomes. Individuals who engage in negative self-talk can expect to experience underachievement compared to those who engage. I said negative self-talk, right? Individuals who engage in negative self-talk can expect to experience underachievement compared to those who engage in positive self-talk. But this difference is not black and white. Low self-esteem and perfectionism may also negatively affect self-perception and self-evaluation as well. So you can see here, there are links to the source material, to the articles that this is citing. I will have a link to this article in the description. So if you do have questions about any of the source material for these, you can definitely head over and click those links, because all of the links are already cited on this article. And they are actually linked up to what they're referring to. And I think that's a little bit more helpful contextually than just throwing all of the links at the bottom of the description. So why does this happen? It has been suggested that mental resources become tied up in anxious thoughts, making them unavailable during the exam, and ultimately changing your performance. Severe test anxiety can impair working memories, significantly diminishing execution. So what that means is, specifically during exam anxiety, and you can relate this in other areas as well, when your brain is engaging in all of these negative or catastrophic thoughts, it's using up all of those resources so that it's sitting at the front of your brain. Those are resources that you cannot then dedicate or assign to recalling the answers, because your brain is full of all of these other negative self-talk or negative or anxious thoughts. And so it's really tying up a lot of the processing power in your brain. As the level of test anxiety experienced goes up, academic achievement goes down. When high test anxiety is experienced, evaluating and perceiving yourself or your abilities can also be substantially impacted negatively. Students with high test anxiety expect to underperform on their exams compared to students who experience low test anxiety. Then they evaluate themselves as inferior. These lowered expectations can creep in and take over your life. Test anxiety can also affect motivation, causing neglect in studying, homework, and other learning exercises. This, unfortunately, drives you deeper into depression, causing you to lose even more motivation. So this negative self-talk is going to tie you up in anxiety, and it's going to lower your motivation. As your motivation is lowered, it's going to make it harder for you to work up the interest or work up the motivation or work up the energy to study or do your homework or even engage in other learning exercises, which is just going to cause you to fall behind, which is just going to drive you deeper into depression and cause you to fall even more behind. So, as you can see, this becomes a cycle quite quickly and kind of spirals out of control. So as you are forced deeper and deeper into this loss of motivation and depression, procrastination will start to take hold, and then you begin to fall behind. This creates a spiral that leads to avoiding. Performance is further diminished by hindering preparation for exams, consuming brain space during homework, or both. Negative self-talk and its implications are usually not restricted to your studies. If you are a person who engages in this behavior, you will likely experience it in other aspects of your life as well. So, how do you stop negative self-talk? To truly stop, let's have a sec. To truly get out of this loop, you will have to address it and resist this temptation, regardless of the situation. Do not let it interfere with how you perceive your finances or relationships either. Approach how you deal with conflict in both areas from a positive stance. Allowing this feeling of helplessness in any aspect of your life will invite it into all aspects of your life. The lower the opinion you have of yourself, the harsher and more critical you will be at evaluating your own performance, which will cause the cycle to further spiral out of control. Social considerations, biological, and psychological factors all play a role in the levels of test anxiety experienced. As you might expect, this is reported more often in female students than it is in males. Female students experience higher anxiety than males in calculations, public speaking, open-ended questions, long answer questions, and short answer questions. During test time. Because of this, we tend to leave more questions unanswered, likely because of this heightened level of stress. The stark contrast between reports of anxiety in females and males may be due to several factors. It could be due to an increase in pressure on female students to succeed academically. These pressures often manifest due to social roles and expectations. This, in turn, increases the strain females put on themselves and causes this increase in anxiety they feel when confronted with the possibility of failure. Another possible explanation may be due to social roles. Men are generally more reluctant to report experiencing anxiety as it may be perceived as a threat to their masculinity. This can cause an underreporting by men of their fears, skewing the results. The effects of negative self-talk can be extremely long-lasting. Once locked in this negative pattern, it can persist far beyond the educational setting and into adulthood and career life. Many adults show crippling fear in the face of external evaluation, self-evaluation, or their likelihood of achieving their goals and ambitions. This persisting hopelessness can manifest even more pronounced in women. We tend to exhibit significantly higher levels of humility when believing in our ability to pursuit of professional ambitions. This is likely due to those same social pressures that cause us to exert additional strain on our performance in the first place. So this is all just society defining our roles for us and essentially expecting more out of women, putting more pressure on women, while putting pressure on men to be Teflon, to not ever succumb to any kind of emotion and to kind of suppress all of those things so that they are all internalized. While it's more acceptable for women to be anxious because of course they're fragile, delicate creatures, then that was sarcasm. then it's more accepted that women report the idea of being anxious, period. So it might not be that that women are more anxious. It just might be that women are more willing to admit to researchers that they are feeling anxiety. Whereas men do not want to have that masculinity threatened. And this is both conscious and self conscious. It is not often that a man will be asked, do you feel anxious? And for them to say, you are questioning my masculinity. No, it's just more often, it's more internalized than that, where men will just repress that feeling of anxiety anyway, and often just transform it to frustration or anger. And so while it is anxiety that they're feeling, they're translating it to anger, which is not an emotion, also sarcasm, and therefore not reporting that anxiety when the frustration that they believe they feel is actually it's fun, it's rooted in anxiety. And because a lot of the time you're not taught to process emotion in the same way, then it comes out differently. So there are so many social factors that play into this reporting, this self-reporting of anxiety. However, oftentimes if these researchers were able to actually hook everybody up, men and women, up to, all of the wires, so that they could actually track brain patterns and heart rate and swelling and cortisol levels, and it would probably more accurately end up being very much a similar reporting when it is not self-reporting, because they would be able to just see what the actual data shows. So the rise in cortisol, the rise in sweating, the rise in heart rate, and the firing of of negative thoughts and the electrons in the brain. It would probably be much more balanced between men and women. But because we're relying on self-reporting, and we have to take into considerations all of these social pressures and social factors that will skew, like subconsciously skew, how people perceive their emotions and how they evaluate their circumstances. And so that's how we end up with this answer. So you can look more into these sources as well, and you will see that it is not so much that this is a hard and fast rule that men have less essay anxiety or test anxiety or performance anxiety than women. It's that there are other factors that influence this self-reporting. So now, finally, the big one. This is the big part of this, is how we actually change it. We've talked about why it's there. We've talked about how it came. We've talked about what it is. And now we're going to figure out a plan to change it, in case you are one of these students that do engage in negative self-talk. I know that I still have to catch myself sometimes, because those negative thoughts pop in and they infest my brain pattern. And so it is something that is going to take a plan, and it's going to take constant work, but we're going to get through it. So as you can clearly see, negative self-talk is like a parasite that attaches to aspirations and slowly drains from them, until all that is left is self-doubt. These effects of negative self-talk are not helpful. They can be a massive contributor to underachievement, hopelessness, and falling short of your dreams. The most unfortunate part is that is this is you. Like, I'm totally missing a word in here. The most unfortunate part of this is that you are standing in your own way. There are ways to stop sabotaging yourself, but first you need to understand how you are doing it. To figure that out, we need to analyze what it is you are stating during your self-talk. Identify Identifying what you Identifying what you say to yourself can give you insight into why you say it. Once you have learned to engage in self-talk, that habit becomes easier and easier to repeat. Soon it becomes an unconscious reflex to stressful situations. Tense settings will only prove to push you deeper into strain, causing anxious thoughts, which will create more negative self-talk. This is a vicious cycle and can quickly spiral downwards when left unchecked. These ultimately allow negative feelings to accumulate. Breaking this cycle can help to improve this air of hopelessness. When you can identify and correct negative self-talk, you can break this cycle. You need to actively engage in the reconstruction of positive self-dialogue. This will lead to higher emotional well-being. You need to reprogram your brain to use positive self-talk as your default coping mechanism. Reframing your thoughts in a positive light will help to boost both achievement and motivation. Over time, it will give the added benefit of reduced test anxiety. So if you are a regular engager of negative self-talk, there are things you can do. 1, recognize when you start to say negative things and stop yourself immediately. Do not allow yourself to go down the rabbit hole. The second you realize that you are saying unkind things to yourself, stop. You would not allow yourself to be subjected to people who continuously berate you. You would walk away. Don't be your own abuser. If you do not walk away from people who continuously berate you, you definitely should start, because their voice will become the voice in your head if you constantly listen to them and how they speak of you to you. Question the thoughts directly as they appear. Then, the second step, number 2, is to question the thoughts directly as they appear. Then, critically seek out honest answers. Is what you are saying to yourself really accurate? I doubt it very much. Often, we will exaggerate the mediocrity of our performance, even in sarcasm or in jest. Remember, self-talk has consequences. What you say jokingly, if repeated enough times, will cause self-doubt and diminish your performance. Do not let these comments be an invitation for the pessimistic self-dialogue. Think critically about what you are saying about your accomplishments. You are probably doing much better than you give yourself credit for. Replace negative self-talk with positive statements. Number 3 is replace negative self-talk with positive statements. So when you do need to reflect on your performance, be kind. Give yourself constructive criticism. Frame your self-talk in a way that will build your confidence, not break it down. Even if you do not believe the words, practicing engaging in this positive narration will eventually cause it to be true. This is called reframing. It can be a potent tool. It can also broaden your perspective of the situation. To do this, you must become aware and honest of the position you found yourself in. Next, you must evaluate the content and, finally, challenge the negative thoughts that come creeping into your mind by questioning their validity and answering honestly. Merely changing the tone of your self-talk from negative to positive has been proven to improve functioning. Framing the way you critique yourself in a positive light actually breeds more positive self-talk. This, in turn, will enhance execution, leading to even more positive support. You can quickly move into a cycle of positive reinforcement, ultimately boosting your self-confidence and reducing anxiety. So these are also on my Instagram. So follow me on Instagram if you want to be able to save or check out any of these little graphics or these carousels, because they are all on there if you need to take a peek at them later. So you can teach yourself how to engage in positive self-talk. Just as there are several types of negative self-talk with varying effect on mood and performance, there are also several different types of positive self-talk. Self-talk can enhance focus. Self-talk to enhance focus is the most common, followed by instructional, calming, and then motivational. None of these types show any more benefit than the others. They are all situational. Instead of kicking yourself over failing that exam, try to seriously consider your efforts leading up to the exam. Did you really study as efficiently or as thoroughly as you should have? Were you already behind in the course or unsure of the content before you started to prepare? How you think about and approach these problems is just as important as what you do to rectify them. Start by making a plan on how you can better prepare for the rest of your exams. Devise a strategy on how you can make up for the missed marks and still pass the course. Plan how you will approach future classes to not have this reduced mark impact your GPA. And finally, determine if you have to take more courses to make up for this one. So how do you avoid negative self-talk and level the academic playing field? During studies, most students explained that much of their anxiety was because they did not have enough information about what would be covered on the exam. Asking questions about the exam, its structure, and its contents could help you defeat some of these fears. Use the class before the exam to ask the professor these questions. Try to flesh out as many details as possible of what material will make it up and what it will look like. Having these questions answered can quell some fears. Because anxiety can hurt test performance, it will be helpful to add diversity to the markup of the final exam, to the makeup of the final exam. This could be done by including a variety of assessments rather than a single final exam. This would make the final exam worth a much smaller portion of your mark and add different types of assignments to balance it out. This would mean that students who experience crippling exam fears could make up lost marks in various exercises that they might be better at. Unfortunately, it also increases the workload for each of your courses. This is an intriguing balancing act. So until universities and colleges get on board with this, what can we do? Well, first of all, keep it positive. Consistency and diversity of the content of the positive self-talk can boost performance. Give yourself praise regularly, and this habit will become easier. It's also true that moderate levels of anxiety help to motivate. A small amount of test anxiety may be healthy to boost students' performance on exams. Still, persisting self-doubt will crush performance and motivation, massively crippling your chances of succeeding. Be kind to yourself. Say pleasant things and regularly engage in positive self-talk. If you can't think of anything nice to say to yourself, repeat positive affirmations. This practice will allow positivity to enter your thoughts and breed genuine positive inner dialogue. If you suffer from test anxiety, pick up my free study planner. It has more than 20 different study activities that you can track over the semester. Effortlessly plan and track each study session leading up to your exam so that you can be as prepared and confident as possible. Also, not even just starting there, I should also mention right now that I am running a challenge. I have a February challenge. It is a 30-day challenge because I want to make sure that we get into March with a bang, seeing as how that will get most students through their midterms if you are in North America. Here, let's pull this challenge up. So if you go to my Instagram, if you click on my link in bio and you click on the perfect study plan challenge, you will see here that we have the perfect study plan challenge. So it just kicked off on February 1st, so you are not far behind. I have had the welcome party and we have done the first workshop to actually create this perfect study plan. So over the next few weeks, we are going to do a handful more. We have 5 workshops in total. So next week, we are going to be doing a self-assessment to be able to figure out your learning style. So there will be a workbook for that where we can work out your working style so that in the following week, we can go and we can actually start tweaking this study plan to have the most effective and the most efficient study activities for you and your learning style. After that, we're going to be talking about motivation and procrastination. And the week after that, session number 5, we are going to be doing a workshop on goal setting for March and making a plan to carry forward. So finally, on the 2nd of March, we have our big bang closing party where we will be giving out prizes for people who have made their study plan and have stuck to it. And just getting to know each other a little bit better and have our final Q&A. So if you are at all interested, make sure to head over here and grab the Perfect Study Plan Challenge. As I said, it is linked in my bio for it is linked in my Instagram bio. So that if you want to pick that up, you are more than welcome to. I would love for you to be able to join us. Like I said, it's not too late. You can still join us. So for now, that is all of it. That is where we are right now. So that is all for today. That is all for this week. I really hope that you liked this video or liked this tutorial about negative self-talk. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. This is a very sensitive subject. So if you do not want to leave them in the comments below, you are always welcome to DM me on Instagram. I do love hearing from you. If you do have any questions about the Perfect Study Plan Challenge, by all means, it is a free challenge. That is the most common question I get. 100% free. There's no obligations. Come in, drop in. There are all of the replays are emailed out weekly in case you can't join live. But yeah, so it's free. So you can also email or DM me about that. So until next time, I would love for you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every week and do these live streams, and they are always about study tips, homework hacks, homework help, and organizational hacks to help you through the study struggle. You can also visit my website for tons of articles and free resources. The links to this particular article that we covered today will be in the description below. So if you want to check out any of those sources, or if you just want to reference it to go and make your get out of negative self-talk plan, by all means, go and pay it a visit. So now, until next time, I hope you have an amazing adventure.